Hi, I'm Theo, and these broadcasts are to support the blogs on nomoreshee.com's website as well as the online classes. In this episode, part one of What is Elohim? Welcome back to another No More She broadcast. Today, the word we're going to look at is Elohim. Now, we did a previous video on how to use Logos and to do a Bible word study. And we went through all the technical details in that video of how you can look up in the original language using tools inside Logos Bible software this word. I want to start off by asking, why would we need to do this? Well, it has been my understanding in all the years that I've been trying to study the Bible that some people come to an understanding of what the word Elohim is. They have that in their mind based on what they were told, passed on to them by their church, their parents, pastors, friends, whatever. And they have this idea, this is what the word Elohim means. We hope if you have participated in my guide on how to do a Bible word study report in Logos that you will have spent some time looking at that. So this video is less technical, and we're just going to look at the term Elohim. Now again, we are trying as much as possible to look at Elohim. Okay, this is a Hebrew word in the Bible, Elohim. Okay, so this is what we're trying to look at. So obviously, in our previous videos, we went to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and we have noted that the first subject of the Bible is God. And when you do a word study in Logos, using a reverse interlinear, you can get behind what is the word for God here. And you'll find that the word God here is Elohim. And so here we have at the top, you see in the beginning God, and at the bottom in the reverse interlinear for the ESV in Logos, you have the word Elohim. Okay. Now, we can look at what that word means. Okay. In this case, at the bottom of the screen, you have the biblical sense that we talked about, the biblical sense lexicon and its database. It tells us in Genesis chapter 1:1, when I click on the word God in the ESV English, the biblical sense behind this word is God, as in the Israelite God, as in what we know as Yahweh. Okay? But I want to look at some of the things behind what we discuss in another video on what is a lemma. And so you can check out that more technical video on our channel. It's going to help you understand morphology. And morphology is just how a word is morphed or changed in a language to reflect its grammatical role in a sentence. And we know from this that the word Elohim in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 is a noun. That's the role it's playing grammatically, using understanding biblical Hebrew grammar in the context of an English-speaking audience who understands English grammar. It is a noun. It's a common noun. It's in the masculine for those who require gender for grammatical purposes. Has nothing to do with physical gender of a person necessarily. Interestingly, it's plural. It's plural. And it's in the absolute, and we're not going to discuss that today. So, plural. Hebrew words that end in, well, when they're transliterated and end in the I am letters, im, tend to be plural, unless it's ayim, and it can be still plural. It just means often two in the dual sense. And this is Elohim, im, in the plural. So why do most Bibles translate it in the singular? Well, if we look at the very next word, the verb, bara. Okay, bara, I should say. Hebrew bara, okay, is a verb, okay, and it's singular, okay, and it's third person singular. So when you have a word like Elohim paired with a verb that is in the singular, then in this instance you translate it as singular. So we know whatever you want to do, and you can go into the lexicons. We discuss lexicons a little bit, and we may do another video on that, but in Theo's guides, but in the Lemma, and in also our Bible word study on Elohim and Logos, we discuss the lexicon, and those are dictionaries, and you can look up, a lot of these things. But the point here is, what we're trying to get at here is that God is in this singular because the verb that is matched with it is in the singular, and the reason that dictates grammatically how it must be translated in this sentence. Now, there are many fallacies to those who are not familiar with the ancient languages surrounding the biblical text, who are not familiar with the rules and laws of language and how language works. And most of the time, they forget even how their own language works. For instance, you can go to our Lemma video, and it discusses the English word run. Okay, and you can follow that and see, when I use the word in English, run, R-U-N, you will understand from the context what that word means. But does it always mean the same thing every time I use the word run? Is there a correlation between the word R-U-N in English and only one single simple meaning? And that's a big mistake that people make when they're doing word studies in the Bible, to presume that every time a Hebrew word is used like Elohim, it has to mean the same time in every single context, as if that word cannot mean anything else. And it's very difficult because obviously we want to pay proper homage to God. And the Israelite God, we understand, is different. Yahweh as God, capital G-O-D, obviously is species unique and entirely different than small G-O-D God or G-O-D-S gods. And so some of our theology is off because we don't understand the grammatical rules of other languages, nor do we pay attention to the grammatical rules of our own language, and it gets us in trouble. So there's no problem in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, with the word Elohim meaning capital G-O-D, God, as the Israelite God, as we showed in the Biblical Sense Lexicon database, its entry in Logos, showing us that's the sense in this verse. There's no problem with that. But if you go through our video on how to do a Bible word study in Logos, it pulls up this chart, and this chart is showing, now I'm using the ESV, showing how the ESV translates the Hebrew word. This is the Hebrew word Elohim, and in the Bible word study video, we show you that this Hebrew word appears around approximately 2,600 times, depending on which database, Hebrew database is being used, based on the manuscripts and different things. So there's slight differences because we don't just have one single manuscript, and be thankful for that we don't have just one single manuscript of the Hebrew Bible that we're referring to. There are quite a few, and so the numbers change slightly depending on which database you're using. But what we have here is Logos giving us in their Bible word study report. And again, I point you to that video. It can be small God, God. It can be capital God, God. It can be, obviously, in the plural, and depending on the grammar, the context, it has to be carefully interpreted and translated, okay? Depending on the context, like the word RUN in the sentence. What does it mean? Okay? So, it most of the time, the majority of the time it's used, and we showed you in that Bible word study report that over 2,300 times that it is used, Elohim is used. It's God, capital G, or small g, any deity. Okay? Any deity. Obviously, we're looking at the Lemma, so go check out our Lemma video, because you have God, gods, goddesses. You know, the word God changes. Capital G, small g, that changes all for us. There are no capital letters in the Hebrew. So, but notice on the right side here, it can also mean goddess. Mighty, it can mean mighty. That's amazing to think that the word Elohim can mean mighty. El Elohe, Israel, God-fearing. Heavenly can just mean a supernatural being, a heavenly being. It can mean star God, exceedingly godly. There's just all kinds of ways that it's being translated and what's happening. And this is just an example. And so go back to our video on that. But you have to realize the Hebrew word Elohim is not every time going to correspond. One Hebrew term in the Bible is not going to 100% of the time correspond to one single English word. You cannot make that connection and then every time do that. Nor can you go to your favorite dictionary lexicon like a Strong's, find all the different meanings, and then you decide yourself through private interpretation, pick one. That kind of reminds me of the Bible's translations that are out there. You know, for years we had only a few. And one of those is called the Amplified Bible. And in the Amplified Bible, that was the idea behind that translation, was to give you all the glosses, give you all the words that it could possibly mean. And then you as a reader can just kind of decide on your own, based on your limited knowledge, without even consulting the original languages, what that word means. I mean, it's important that we should see what the author means by that word and carefully look if we can discern how the biblical author uses that word in that specific context. And that can change. And even different biblical authors can use the same words and have different meanings. And so that gets quite tricky when we try to mess all those things up. So I've been talking about the Bible Sense Lexicon and its database, and that's all the senses. So this is a lexicon that took and tried to understand all the ways, all the senses, okay, the semantical range of a word in the Bible. And in the blue, you see that the majority of the time that the word Elohim is used in the Bible, the blue now, represented in this translation wheel, the majority of the time the sense is the Israelite God. But there are some people that I have met even in my academic journey who say only this is true. It can only mean the Israelite God. It never can mean anything else. And yet we use the word G-O-D, small G-O-D, and we don't mean the Israelite God. We mean something else. When we talk about other people and their gods, we use the Lemma, G-O-D, and we don't mean Yahweh, the Israelite God. So we don't use the word G-O-D every time, but they think that the Bible only uses Elohim, only the blue, because it's the majority. They didn't realize that we have here, again, in the red, can mean deity. Interestingly, it can mean prophet, supernatural creating being, for instance, Son of God, a heavenly being, a king, a shrine room. I mean, this is amazing to think about. And there are some people that do not realize this. And so, again, I would refer you back to our other videos on Lemma, our other video on Bible word study, where we dig into Elohim and see that and help you to understand that it can mean different things at different times in the Bible. And so I'm not talking about other literature. This is a Bible sense lexicon for the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. Okay? The use of the word Elohim. I'm not talking about text outside the Bible. I'm only talking about the biblical corpus. There are times when it is used to mean something else. And that is very difficult for some people to understand because we have been raised and brought up and taught. And I'm often referred to this to my students over and over again, this illustration that so many scholars use. How do I tell a 5-year-old where babies come from? Do I give them the full skinny on where babies come from, how babies are produced, and the whole thing to explain it to a 5-year-old? And most of the time we have not dug down deep into what the Bible is actually using in these terminologies. So the title that we started off with this video is, what is Elohim? What is Elohim? It is a Hebrew lemma that has all these meanings. So here we go. 2,330 of the 2,681 times it appears in the Bible. It is the God, Israelite God. But then we have 254 uses of deity, 73 prophet, 16 of an idol, 5 of a supernatural created being. And again, you can go back to that video where I do a full Logos Bible word search, and it has all the phrases, including the sons of God here, and also son of God, heavenly being once, king once, shrine room once. So these are more accurate descriptions, and you can check out that video to get more information. We hope you've enjoyed part 1 of our exploration of what is Elohim. Please join us in the following video for more on Elohim. Thank you very much, and God bless you for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes in videos to help you with your journey from NoMoreSea.com.